The MLB season moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. That reflection is what the All-Star break is all about. And as the Braves close out the first half of the season, we're going to stop and look around here on Battery Power TV. Cory McCartney with you as always with Grant McAuley. And it's going to hand out some first half superlatives. Apologies for neither of us getting dressed up for the occasion. But first, Grant, what was your prevailing storyline for the first half of the season for the defending champs? Was it the 14-game winning streak as part of the ridiculous June? Was it the reverberations of two rookies just going through this roster and accomplishing so much? Or maybe the former top 5 pick who is finally putting things all together?
Yeah, I mean, any and all of those things help the Braves become the team that they are right now after a very slow start. But I think it's hard to overlook a 14-game winning streak, as we talked about a while back in June when that was going on. A winning streak like that for the Braves comes along about once every decade or so. So that would probably be the top highlight of it. But that really underscored the fact that this was a team that had that in them and they were searching for it. And then all of a sudden they found it and a whole bunch of things went right after a month and a half where it really seemed like they couldn't get things to go right on consecutive days. So I would say that's probably the biggest highlight, biggest takeaway from the first half, but it's hard to overlook the Michael Harris show, the Spencer Strider show, and of course, as you mentioned, what Kyle Wright has done. There's so many things and so many reasons why the Braves are trying to chase down another National League East crown and hopefully get into October and repeat as champions, and those are just a few.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with the month in which they led the National League in home runs, weighted run created plus. Fangraph WAR had the major's best pitching staff in terms of Fangraph WAR, FIP, and the starters led in both of those categories. But let's talk first half MVPs here. Dansby Swanson penning a career year. Austin Riley is on his way to potentially another career year. Matt Olson is collecting doubles like their Pokemon cards. They have 7 players who are hitting at least 15% above league average or higher who have 100 or more plate appearances. Who's your position player Brave of the first half?
I'm going to stick with Dansby Swanson. I've thought that him putting it all together and not just one of those 3 or 4 week hot streaks followed by a couple of weeks where he was trying to find himself at the plate again. This has been a consistent approach and a consistent attack and consistent production from Dansby Swanson. We've asked this for years and years and years because the defense has always been something that you could count on at shortstop, but when was he going to find maybe a next level? I think you and I did a whole episode about, is there another level for Dansby Swanson? And this was coming off a couple of pretty good offensive seasons for him, but he has shown us and told us that the answer to that is yes. Now, the whole second half is out in front of them. The Braves have the most important games of the season ahead of them as they look to chase down the Mets and get back into October. But Dansby Swanson, particularly after a couple of weeks of looking lost at the plate, it's incredible to see what he has turned his first half into. And the fact that he's heading to Los Angeles for a very well-deserved all-star nod, that should tell you just about everything you need to know about the season he's had to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I can make a really strong case for Austin Riley, who became one of 7 Braves. I mean, he's now one of 7 Braves, including the likes of Hall of Famers Hank Aaron, Eddie Matthews, Chipper Jones, and the illustrious Dale Murphy and Andrew Jones to hit at least 25 first half home runs. But the right answer is Dansby Swanson. And I'm going to admit it. I mean, I was one of those guys that thought that maybe he took advantage of that small sample size in the pandemic shortened year when he had his first WRC plus above league average. He hit below league average in 2021. But this version of Dansby, we talked about next level. This has been next level. He's pummeling fastballs. The average is up nearly 75 points against that pitch. His StatCast year-over-year numbers are a sea of red, including a hard hit rate that's up 3.5%. That's right around the top 25 players in all of baseball in terms of year-over-year increases. So he also happens to be 4th in the NL in Fangraph WAR in all of baseball. He's ahead of the likes of Freddie Freeman and Mike Trout in that department. Wow. Switching to the mound, if you're looking at 3 candidates, I think really Max Fried, a first-time All-Star, ranking 3rd in Fangraph WAR. Kyle Wright, 2nd in the NL and wins, a top 20 ERA. And of course, Spencer Strider has the highest strikeout rate in anybody in all of baseball. So who's your pick for the Braves pitching MVP of the first half?
I'm going to give it to Max Fried, but you mentioned the other 2 candidates who really, stepped forward in a big time way, because when the Braves came to spring training, there was this knowledge that, okay, you've got Max Fried, you've got Charlie Morton, and you've got Ian Anderson, but you had 2 question marks in rotation. So Kyle Wright, to me, has been maybe the stabilizing force of the Braves rotation, but Max Fried's the guy that sets the tone. He pitches his best baseball against winning clubs. He's shown it time in and time again. Is it going to be perfect every time? Is he going to be able to go out and dominate every start? Well, of course not. But if you stack up Max Fried against the National League's best pitchers over the last like going back to 2019. So over the last 3.5 seasons now, Max Fried stacks up favorably in just about any metric that you can look at when it comes to what makes a front of the line starting pitcher. So I'm going to go ahead and give Max Fried the first half award, but hey, we've got a whole second half to go. And if Spencer Strider throws another 70 or so innings, he could be surpassing 200 strikeouts at the rate he's on. So by the time it's all said and done, it might be the guy on your t-shirt who's going to be the guy who might be the Braves pitching MVP this year.
That's right. The Flames matter. And I can't deny Fried here. I mean, it's just one, it's not even those baseline numbers. You talk about a top 10 ERA of 2.56. He's racking up 112 in a third innings over his 18 starts. Granted, he's been the workhorse for more than anybody in this staff in terms of innings, but he's carried the momentum of the second half of 2021, walking a paltry 176 batters per nine, which is a career best. For the first time, he struck out at least 10 batters on 5 different pitches. He's ramped up that slider and changeup usage to career highs. He is a pitcher in full and a certifiable ace, and that's no longer in doubt. We're no longer wondering if and when Max Fried is going to be an ace. That the era of Fried is officially here. So let's talk surprises. There's more than a few. I mean, Wright's ascension, William Contreras' production at the plate, making him an all-star, the impact of Strider and Michael Harris II, who we've already talked about, but the fact that Robinson Cano is playing second base for the Atlanta Braves. I mean, a lot of surprises with this team, but what really sticks out to you as the biggest first half surprise?
I don't want to say that the talent wasn't there, but I was so surprised that the Braves went to Michael Harris as early as they did in the season. And I know they had some definite needs in the outfield, but I'm not surprised that he has found a way to be, at the very least, a useful player. But I am pleasantly surprised that he has hit the ground running and been an impact player for the Braves. And, you know, while I thought, hey, we could see Michael Harris in 2022 at some point, I never thought it'd be before we got out of the month of May. So as far as big surprises are concerned, I think that's probably going to be at the top of my list.
Yeah, I think, from last August on, we were marveling at how you can bring in 4 different outfielders and have every one of them make a significant contribution. It was really unheard of. An average for Alex Anthopoulos, it was at 1,000 of the trade market, but it's happening again, and it's happening with 2 rookies. And you should be able to bring in your preseason number 1 and number 2 prospects and have them both not only stick at the major league level, but be integral pieces to what you're doing in the rotation and in the lineup. And that's exactly what happened. Harris is leading all NL rookies in WAR. Strider tops all rookie arms across all majors in terms of WAR. And it's truly remarkable. I mean, Strider has really solidified the back end of that rotation. Obviously, Harris hitting 26% above league average, playing a level of defense that could make him the first NL rookie since Nolan Arenado in 2013 to win a Gold Glove. So, I mean, it's really been remarkable what they've got out of those 2 rookies. Finally, the Braves haven't been without their blemishes. Marcell Ozuna has 17 home runs, but has a negative WAR right now. Charlie Morton has had some nice starts, but he's allowing home runs at the highest rate he has in 12 years. Ian Anderson's ERA is hovering around 5. Who stands out to you, Grant, is the player that the Braves really need to pick it up in the second half?
Well, it's hard to say that there's just one, but I'm going to go with the starting pitchers that you mentioned because it seems like Charlie Morton has more or less figured it out. I don't know that I can say the same for Ian Anderson yet. I think he's still looking for it and trying to find that consistency and that feel. And the strikeouts are down so much for Ian this year. You can't say that about Charlie Morton. He's still missing bats. His curveball has really come on. He's really looked more like the Charlie Morton that we've come to expect over the last probably 5 or so weeks. But for Ian Anderson, it's just been this constant grind of trying to find his way through some rough starts, some walks here and there, getting hit hard, and just trying to figure out a way to be the contributor that he's been since being called upon in the pandemic shortened season of 2020 and really having an amazing debut and having so much success in the postseason the last couple of years. This just hasn't felt like that Ian Anderson. And that's what baseball is. It's a constant game of adjustments. It's not going to come easy all the time. And I don't think Ian Anderson's afraid of the work and figuring out the way to get through this. But I would say if there was one way to make the Braves really click and really get in sync for what they're going to need over the final 70 or so games, it would be having, yes, Charlie Morton pitching like Charlie Morton, which has been more times than not lately, but getting Ian Anderson to really stabilize what has become the 5th spot of the rotation in a lot of ways, just because of the pure dominance of Spencer Strider and the fact that you've been able to answer questions in your rotation with both Kyle Wright and with Spencer Strider. And now the question that you're trying to answer is, can Ian Anderson get back on the ball and join the other 4 men in this rotation to really give the Braves a formidable starting 5?
I really hate to be like an echo chamber here, but I do think it's Anderson as well. All of our preseason conversations were about the certainty that you had at the top there with Fried, Morton, and Anderson. And Grant, I mentioned Morton's numbers are elevated, but as you said, he has improved over the last month. But Anderson's hard hit rate is up over 41%. He's walking guys at a career high. His fastball batting average against is up nearly 100 points year over year. I don't know that the Braves, what they're going to be able to get out of Mike Soroka. I mean, obviously, he's still a factor. Kyle Muller's an option. Obviously, the trade deadline's looming. And I'm not trying to put Ian Anderson's spot here in jeopardy, but if the postseason were to start right now and they were in a 3-game wild card series, I don't know that Ian Anderson is going to get a start in that series. And I think that's one of the most crazy statements that I feel like I am making right now that I would never have believed if I would have been saying that back in the winter.
No, and not on opening day either. You would have expected that, hey, well, the 3 guys that'll be starting for us if we started a 3-game postseason series right now would be Max Fried, Charlie Morton, and Ian Anderson. That was a certainty. Over time, the certainty in the Braves rotation became Max Fried, Kyle Wright, and Spencer Strider. And that's not to say that, again, Morton hasn't made strides, but for Anderson, the work is still out there for him to accomplish and for him to get back to being, really what he was. And no, you can't really plan around Mike Soroka. And there's nobody that wants to see Mike have more success than I think you or I, but we're not alone. There's a lot of people that want to see this kid get back on the mound and, reclaim the promising career that he had shown, but you can't plan around that right now. A rehab assignment is still in front of him. That means that it could be, late August, early September before you really start to see Mike Soroka pushing his way into the plans because, we're approaching the latter portion of the month of July. So the calendar is a factor there. And I think that the Braves need, in a best case scenario, for Ian Anderson to figure some things out, a lot like the way that Charlie Morton has more or less figured some things out in order to give them the stabilized starting 5. And then when Soroka comes back, you figure out what you need to when that happens. It's a great contingency, and it's something that's really helped the Braves this year. And I know it's something Alex Anthopoulos is proud of. That is depth, because you're going to have injuries. You're going to have inconsistency. You don't always want to have to go outside the organization to fix that problem. The trade deadline will allow him to do that, and I expect him to make this club better. But from a best case scenario for the starting 5 in particular, it's to get Ian Anderson going and really complementing what the other 4 have by and large been doing, particularly Fried, Wright, and Spencer Strider of late.
It's been a fascinating first half for sure. The Braves will be well represented in the All-Star game, including Ronald Acuna Jr. I can't believe we're mentioning him for the first time in this video, talking about what this team did in the first half of the season. But he'll be in the home run derby. He'll be one of 5 Braves in the field. Of course, Brian Snitker going to be leading that National League squad as well. Enjoy the Midsummer Classic. We'll be back with plenty more here on Battery Power TV. Make sure you subscribe. Turn on those notifications so you get an alert each and every time that we drop a new episode. Also, catch us Sunday nights on From the Diamond on 92.9 The Game in Atlanta. Until next time, I'm Cory McCartney. He's Grant McAuley. We'll see you soon, Braves Country.